The Hoover Board of Education meeting is now called to order. If you would, please join me in a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. Pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. White, would you please do a roll call to establish quorum?
Deanna Baumann. Here. Earl Cooper.
Here.
Greg Kelly.
Here.
Herman Kendrick.
Here.
And Amy Tosnick. Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. We have before you tonight the agenda for today's board meeting. Today's board meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda for the meeting? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The agenda is approved. We'll now have our recognition time, Mr. Gaston.
Good evening. Our first honoree for tonight is Miss Morgan Streeter. If she is in the house and would make her way forward. She's in the very back. 7th grader at Berry Middle School. She placed first in the state of Alabama in the Letters About Literature Writing Contest, so she will represent us at the national level. This is sponsored by the Library of Congress, Washington, D.C. I understand you have an awards ceremony in Tuscaloosa later this month, so congratulations to you. Here's your certificate. And reading specialist and writing teacher at Berry Middle School, Ms. Dinah Minor was pivotal in this. I believe her mother, Tracy, is with us. So thank you for being here. Next, Mr. Brandon Cole, World Languages teacher. He is the recipient of the 2018 Award for Excellence in Teaching World Languages. This is put on by the University of Alabama Office of Research on Teaching in the Disciplines, and they've even asked him to upload his outstanding lesson plan to ALEX, Alabama Learning Exchange. So, congratulations. And next up, South Shades Press teacher Megan Denson. She'll be making her way up. She is the recipient of the Maitland P. Simmons Memorial Award for New Teachers. That's put on by the National Science Teachers Association. She was awarded recently. You see the photo there. That's from the conference in Atlanta, I believe, the award ceremony. So she is our esteemed facilitator there at South Shades Crest. Congratulations, Megan. All right, we got some fishers in the house. Fishermen. Not too often do we recognize this. So 4 anglers you see in the photo there. This is from a tournament at Lay Lake, I believe, over spring break. We've got Connor, Neil, Sam Hosley, Hoover High School, Carson Maddox, and Jake Maddox, Spain Park. 2 separate fishing teams that represented Hoover City Schools, and one and qualified for nationals that we go into Kentucky Lake this coming August. So, gentlemen, come forward. Yes, ma'am. right, and if I understand correctly, first team from Hoover City Schools to represent us at nationals, so congratulations. The Hoover High faculty sponsor is Rob Turner. I believe he's here with us, so thank you for being here. And a Mr. Jeff Vernon from Spain Park High School, I believe, handles that team. I don't believe he was able to make it here tonight, so thank you again. Ms. Hogan is getting closer to knowing whether she is the National Assistant Principal of the Year. Is she here tonight? Okay, come forward. As you see right here, she is up against a teacher, or excuse me, an AP from Wisconsin, one from South Carolina, so we're very hopeful that this accolade comes to you and by extension Hoover City Schools, so congratulations. Okay. Finds out tomorrow if she is National AP of the Year. So, congratulations. That is put on by the National Association of Secondary School Principals. You see their logo there in the bottom right. They are also the ones that put on National Assistant Principals Week. This is our next point of inclusion here for tonight, a proclamation that's been signed by the board, superintendent. National Assistant Principals Week, April 9th through 13th. As you know, we're in the middle of that. Would all of our APs please stand right now? And we don't have time for you to shake hands, but please come forward if you would. We want to, yeah, if all the APs would come forward and line up. There's a lot of germ spreading right there, right? We'll just line up across the front so we can get a photo here. I worked with our Human Resources Department to determine some analytics related to the APs. We have a total of 26 spread out across our 16 campuses. Anyone want to take a guess at their collective years of service to education? 3,000. Take offense to that, right? No. This group right here, APs for Hoover City Schools, combined years of service, around 500 years of service to education, so congratulations.
I
think we need a Pano iPhone. There we go. 3, 2, 1. Got it. Thank you. And to discuss National Walk at Lunch Day coming up tomorrow as well is our Child Nutrition Director, Melinda Bond.
On behalf of the District Wellness Committee, I just wanted to bring to awareness that all of spring 2018 is National Walk at Lunch Day that is actually been created by Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And so it's just their promotion to get everyone to become active, grab a partner, go at lunch, find the best time that you can to get out and be active, because walking is a healthy habit for life that anyone can do. So it helps you to maintain a healthy weight. It can prevent and maintain many diseases, and it will lift your mood and fight depression. So if you're getting stressed out about rezoning, go take a walk.
I'm just glad she didn't say take a hike.
Walk out. All right. That was a great segue. Melinda? All right. That concludes recognitions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public participation? Anyone? Okay, moving on to the action items. You have the minutes before you, the regular board meeting March 13th. 2018, and a special call board meeting March 22nd, 2018. Dr. Murphy,
Board members, I ask your approval of both sets of minutes.
do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of both sets of these minutes? Do I have a second? Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda would be the personnel actions. Dr. Murphy.
Before you, you have a personnel report that includes 6 employees. All of those are replacement positions with the exception of we're very excited about junior ROTC. Those are 2 new positions. And so we're excited to have those 2 gentlemen on the agenda for employment. You also have 3 transfers, 5 requests for leave of absence, 9 resignations, 7 retirements for a total of 188 years for those who are retiring, 3 terminations, and 15 requests for bus liability insurance waiver. Board members, I recommend your approval of the personnel report.
Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the personnel actions?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions from the board? I've got one. Don, I know you're pretty excited about this Air Force ROTC. Tell us about it a little bit.
Yes, it really are. It's something we've been working on for 8 years, actually. We were denied a couple of times. Thought we had it one time early on, and federal funding cuts, you never know when you get that. But it's basically totally funded. We found out in November. Hired a gentleman, Colonel James Moulton out of Illinois. He's got the highest rated unit in the United States right now. Very excited about that. I was able to steal the NCO officer from Homewood High. He's long-term here, so we're very excited about it.
Good, thank you. Any questions? Anybody else have any questions? Any questions from the public on the ROTC program? Have a motion and a second. Personnel actions, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Personnel report is approved. Business actions are reported. Dr. Murphy?
I'm going to ask Tina if she would share our business actions.
Board, before you, you have the summary financial statements and general purpose financial statements based upon the reconciled bank statements as of February 28, 2018. For the FY18 budget, 61.34% of budget revenue has been received for those 5 months ending February 28. The variance as compared to the prior year is a favorable $1.8 million to our revenue fund. This variance is attributed to an increase in tax receipts at this point. The results of operations represent 5 months of activity, and accordingly, approximately 41.7% of budget would have been anticipated to have been spent at this time. General fund expenditures are actually at 41.1% of budget and $611,854 more than the February period for FY17 due to the Hoover High Band Room. General fund expenditures year to date are $3.1 million more than February 2017 as a result of the purchase of River Chase Middle, the Hoover High Band Room, and high school turf and tracks projects. The special revenue fund expenditures reflect 5 months of activities and were $9.3 million or 47.1% of budget. The special revenue expenditures are $570,596 year to date, more than the comparable period in FY17 due to local school professional development and supplies.
Quick question. On this plus $1.8 million year to date increase in tax receipts, is that both ad valorem and sales tax?
It is, it's a combination. And with that, cash disbursements for February were $2,999,258.87. Payroll for March 2018 was $7,495,183.45.
Board members, I request your approval of the monthly financial report, cash disbursements for February, and our payroll for March 2018 as reported to you.
Do you have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of the approval of business action items?
So
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public on any of this? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Business actions are approved. Dr. Burke?
we're gonna ask Tina to hang on with us, and we're going to do our budget amendment. This is the one budget amendment that we'll be bringing forward to you as a board, and Tina, ask that you share that with us.
The purpose of a budget amendment is to bring forward your actual ending balance from the previous fiscal year and make any other adjustments that you deem necessary. So looking at, to just recap a little bit, our 2017 ending balances, as we recall, we added $27.5 million to our reserve fund, leaving us with a reserve of $120.9 million in our reserve. Some transactions that I went over during the year-end financials that we'll just recap quickly that were unique to 2017 was the Jefferson County appropriation, which was a one-time thing, which we might get a little bit more. I just noticed the press release today, but we received $9.1 million. The sale of Old Berry, what we had left from funding the turf and track program was $9.1 from that sale. We had an increase in tax revenues of $2.32 million. We had an increase in interest revenues of $268,000. Basically, that is in there to show you how our investments are doing that we invested back in 2017. We actually saved $3.42 million on our budget, where we only spent 93% of our budget. We also had an increase in foundation local match and state funds of 3.3, bringing us to the 27.5 million that we added to our reserve.
That's September 30th, 2017.
Yes, sir. So looking at our fund balance or reserve for 2018, as we just said, the 2017 actual ending reserve or fund balance was $120.9 million. What we projected at the original September 30 or original budget hearing, we projected to end at $98.1 million. Because of those excess in revenues that we saw, we're amending, of course, as we bring forward those ending balances, for our amended budget to end at $121,079,000.
I think we asked you, Ms. Hancock, when we thought these events were going to occur. You said, yes, I'm expecting them, but legally cannot be posted until it in fact occurs.
That's
So
it.
you're adjusting it now because they have taken.
Yes, sir.
And you have a timeline that you'll show how
Yes.
that sort of fell out for us too, but that's exactly right.
Yeah, something to mention as well on that note, because our fiscal year ends September 30th, we've already started school, with 2 months into a school year. So timing is always an issue for our budget and our financials as well, just because of that, the way that year ends. We proposed, and ASBO has proposed several times, that we change that to be a June to July. It has not passed. Don't know that it's going to, but it would really help our budget as far as just timing of when things happen. That way you could actually cap expenditures for one school year in one fiscal year. But currently that's not the way that always happens.
I believe Legislator Bill Poole has a bill that has been out there for a couple of years that may eventually get some traction to change how we start and end a fiscal year. So stay tuned, that might change.
So the breakdown of the budget is revenues we are projecting to be $175.7 million, expenditures $175.6 million, and excess of revenues over expenditures of only $83,000. And then the projected ending balance, as I mentioned earlier, was $121 million. This budget is very tight, as we've tried to look at everything, as you will see as we go throughout this presentation. But we are committed to following our strategic plan. We're committed to having a positive budget, and we plan on working within this budget. So again, that's just the actual thing from the state of where things fall out. So the comparison to the original budget that we presented back in August and 1st of September. So per the original budget, we said that we were going to end the year with a positive $3.3 million with a projected reserve balance of $98 million. As we bring forward that $27.5 million, we are proposing that we're going to end the year with a positive $83,000 and fund balance or reserve balance of $121 million. So some of the expenditures that we actually amended and moved some things around to, again, stay within our budget and stick with a balanced budget. We adjusted our capital outlay plan $2 million from the Hoover High roof to the Hoover High band room. Now, does this mean Hoover High's not gonna get a roof? They will, but while we're doing construction on the band room, that's just too much construction in that area, and it just does not fall out right. And the Hoover High roof will be fine, according to, was it an engineer that you had look at that? For a few months until we get into the next fiscal year. So we adjusted the $2 million to the band room. We also adjusted the capital outlay plan $200,000 from the paving to the Brox Gap playground that we will need for rezoning. Now that did leave about $180,000 in paving, which will be sufficient for what we're going to be able to pave this summer. We also adjusted the capital outlay plan $100,000 from painting to Simmons Furniture upgrades for rezoning. That still leaves us $100,000 in the capital outlay plan for painting, and last year that was all we spent on painting and actually got a lot of projects done. So some additional expenditures, why that came from the 3.38 million down to the 83,000 was as you remember back in December, we approved the Hoover High band room at $5.5 million. Based upon when we're supposed to be in that room, we're looking at about $5 million of expenses in this fiscal year. So we added $3 million to that budget, and we also added $300,000 to our transportation budget to retrofit existing buses that we will need for rezoning, and for the 10 bus routes for rezoning, and then security cameras. So that leaves us with an adjusted reserve balance of $121 million, but ending the budget with $83,000. Special revenue funds included in the budget are comprised of federal funds that have specific guidelines and limitations on the expenditure of these funds. Some programs that have not spent from the previous fiscal year may be carried forward to the next fiscal year, but are required to be spent in that next fiscal year. Local school public funds are also included in special revenue funds. So looking at our carry over funds from Title I that we are required to expend before the end of this fiscal year are $8,871, from Title II or English Language Learner Program, $17,970, and then IDEA-B, which is special ed, $11,942. This is some of the lowest carryover funds that Hoover High has seen in quite a while. Basically, when you are given special revenue funds, they are to be spent in that school year. So as you can see from this, we are spending those properly in that year. And again, you can't always plan for everything, and sometimes you have to carry forward money, but this is some of the lowest carryover that we've seen, which is how those special revenue funds are supposed to be properly spent. And that is the end of the budget presentation. Do you want to go ahead and get
Let's stop there. We are, perhaps there's benefit in continuing the conversation prior to asking the board to approve the amendments, I think. So if we could, let me have her carry on.
Okay. Based upon the impact study and what we saw earlier tonight, we tried to estimate some expenditures in anticipation of meeting the future needs of Hoover City Schools. And so we kind of basically did this out into a 6-year look at some of the things that we're going to need. But before we do that, I wanted, and I know everybody can't see this, but this will be on our website, but this was basically the timeline of how things fall and why the timing of how we receive revenues and expenditures always impacts our budget and our fiscal year. So in 2016, in October of 2016, we sold Old Berry High School for $10.9 million. In March of 2017, which is in the same fiscal year, we approved a bid for Hoover High School, or for the high school's turf and track programs at $3.5 million. In August of 2017, we presented the first FY18 proposed budget. with a fund balance of 3.38 million. On September 12, 2017, we presented our second required FY18 proposed budget hearing. We didn't really make any adjustments, so the fund balance or reserve balance was still at 3.38 million. September 19th September 15th is when our budget is required to be due to the state. September 21st is when we actually received those funds from Jefferson County of $9.1 million. And then at 9/30 is when we close our year for that fiscal year. So you can see right there were a lot of things happening in September. The budget was due, then right after that we received some revenues that have to be receipted in that fiscal year. You can't carry those forward and receipt them in October. You have to do it then, that's a requirement. And then we close the fiscal year. So you might see some changes because your budget's really due before you close out that fiscal year. So things are gonna change because your ending balances will change, and so that the timing is such a critical issue there. Then in October of 17, just as we start the fiscal year for 18, we purchased River Chase Middle at $4.25 million. In December of 2017, we approved the Hoover High School band at $5.5 million. And then now we're coming to you to ask approval for a budget amendment as we bring forward those reserve balances. And then some of the things that you're going to see throughout this presentation are based upon the impact study that you saw tonight. And that helps us look forward into some of the things that we are going to be expecting to need to do in the future.
And so may I say for clarification, the amended budget has just been presented to you. What conversation Tina's about to have with you is futuristic as we look forward, FY 19, 20, etc., but you're not being asked to approve anything now. Okay, just for clarification. Thank you.
This may be a little hard to see, but there were a lot of things that we had to look at. So looking at fiscal year 19, which if you think about that, that's right around the corner. We'll be working on that budget. Well, we're actually already started working on that budget. We'll be presenting that budget in August and sometime toward the beginning of September, and then asking for approval at 9/15. So our legislature has passed a 2.5% salary increase for FY 19. What that means to us locally is based upon our local units, our support staff is about $2 million that we will have out of our general fund. We're looking at 10 additional bus routes due to rezoning, and that would cost us about $200,000 in salaries and benefits and fuel. River Chase Career Center salaries, we have to carry those for a while before we actually see any funding for that, because again, funding is based in arrears on the previous year. So we're looking at $545,600. River Chase Transportation and Fuel, since we're not going to have kids in there until really fall of 2019, we're only going to be looking at fuel for about 2 months, so that's about $28,000. River Chase Utilities, we have utilities now, but as we do those retrofits and adjustments, we're going to be carrying that for the full year, so that's about $250,000. For FY 19, we see a bond payment increase of $800,000. We're looking at mental health support to support our mental health programs, and looking at some positions to actually support that as well, $1 million. Roofing projects, as again, we've pushed back the Hoover High School roof to FY 19, which we'll need to do, and that's $2 million. But we usually try to budget every year annually for roofs, because we're trying to get those on the cycle. Paving projects, again, annually we have a budget. We're looking at, in FY 19, Rocky Ridge, the board office, Berry, and Berry Middle at $500,000. We're looking, or I'm in the process of forming a salary schedule committee for support staff. So looking at competitively changes in that to be competitive for hiring and retention of our support staff of about $1 million increase. We're looking at doing some type of renovations to Old Bluff Park Elementary of $1 million, and that's more or less just to get started. Berry Middle School additional classrooms that, from the impact studies you saw tonight, if we take Mr. Solomon's advice and say we're gonna do 85%, looking at what we're going to need, we're gonna need about 16 classrooms to open in the fall of 2021. So to get that project started, in FY19, because you've got to have the drawings, it takes just a while to get that project up and going. So to just get started, we're looking at an FY19 $1 million. The same thing for River Chase Elementary, to open also in the fall of 2021, $1 million to get started. With those changes and the many maintenance needs that we have, we're looking to hire 2 additional operations staff. We cut that program tremendously. There's down 8 people, so we need to, in order to get a lot of these things done, we need to hire back, and we're looking to do 2 at $75,000, including benefits. And then the technology refresh that we are committed to with our technology initiative is about $3 million. So that for FY19, that totals $14,399,100. So if we take the reserve, and basically if we are saying that our revenues are pretty flat, and we're only seeing slight increases in ad valorem. So looking at just flat revenues, we're looking at a reserve. Again, right now we're projecting 121 million, but we're looking at a reserve for the end of FY19 of $106,680,000. So you're seeing a decrease. So
May I
yes.
have us hit pause? So I wanted to be a little bit deliberate about a few things, particularly the Old Bluff Park Elementary, Berry Middle School, and River Chase. And I'm gonna have to fumble through here and find that, but as it relates to the Old Bluff Park Elementary School, we have had lots of conversations even this day about what to do at the Old Bluff Park Elementary School. We've had conversations about preserving that very older historical front with the possibility of taking other parts of that older campus, the add-ons, down. We've talked about how we might add some additional classrooms to, if you remember those percentages, I need to find Bluff Park if I can, have too many pages here. Close to the end. Here we are. So we very well may want to take some parts of that older part down, not the older historical original front. And so that's what this is about, starting that conversation. What we do not want to do is to have that fall down around us and not take care of that campus. And so we've already had Tracy and Mr. Mugg have already started looking at what the cost would be for taking down the older parts of that campus. So that's some of what the Bluff Park is about. Berry Middle School, you all remember the conversation that we had during the presentation and what that looks like. And wherever that one happens to be. But we do believe that if we're going to go with an 85% capacity piece, we're going to have to start looking immediately at Berry Middle School and at River Chase. So that's why those pieces are there. Tina, can you give us again how many rooms we thought we needed at Berry? I don't think this is alphabetical and I'm having trouble.
Yeah. Berry was 16 classrooms, River Chase was 8.
The additional rooms, I've scribbled on mine. Here we are. So at Berry Middle School, based on our calculations looking at growth, we feel like we're going to need, as she suggested, the 16 classrooms. We would like to have those classrooms in place August of 2021. Our best calculation at this point is $6 million. And that particular school has capacity for 1,275 students. That capacity numbers if it was completely filled, and again, that's not where we want to be. The River Chase, we need to add 8 rooms. That school has 768 seat capacity, and we'd like to have that addition ready again by August 2021 based on what we see in the impact study. And so I just wanted to share, as we carry on from this page forward, you're gonna see other costs associated with these three schools. This first year is just getting started, architectural, designing, and initial work. And you're gonna see now as she flips the pages, there's more money for these three schools as you go forward, and that's the actual buildings or the construction of those classrooms.
Did you mention the price for estimation for River Chase for the 8 classrooms? I know you mentioned it preparing.
River Chase, the 8 classrooms, is not on my sheet.
3.5.
3.5 million.
So looking at FY20, you're gonna see some of the same things repeated. The reason being is once those basically become recurring expenditures. But again, they're not in our budget at this point. They will have to be as we move forward, and they will continue to be recurring expenditures, and we'll be carrying those forward every year. But as you look at some of the changes for FY20 is the River Chase transportation and fuel we'll have for an entire year, so that will be about $170,000. In FY20, our bond payment increases $2 million. Again, I've mentioned to the board several times that we are looking at the call date of that and trying to jump in front of that. I've been meeting with some financial advisors this week, and I've met with some last week to look at some other options that we may have. So again, we want to try to get in front of that, but at this point in time, we're looking at a $2 million increase in FY20 on that bond payment. So for some of the other things that we're looking at moving forward with roofing projects in FY20, we're looking at Greystone and paving projects, Green Valley, Deer Valley, and Trace Crossings. You will see a change in the amount for Berry Middle School. Again, we mentioned $6 million. What we're looking at for this year or for FY20 is $3 million. Again, that's going to take some time to build out, and you won't have all your expenditures in one year, but pretty much basically because of the timing of when everything is due to the state and when you close your fiscal year. River Chase, Old Bluff Park Elementary renovations, $1 million is allocated for that. Again, that will take time to build that and decide which direction we're going to go with that. River Chase Elementary, we budgeted half of that also for 1.7. So those other costs are, again, are relative to FY19. We carry forward for 2020 to be recurring costs. So we're looking at a total there for FY20 of $17,490,600. As I mentioned earlier, if revenues stay flat like they are, we're looking to end the reserve at FY 2020 of $89,189,000. So again, we're watching that steadily and consistently drop each year. Yes, sir.
Murphy, could you comment just a bit on this salary schedule for hiring and retention of staff support and the mental health support?
Yes. So let's take the salary schedule competitive. This is for our support staff. As we have looked at salary schedules for our support staff, we're certainly interested in supporting those employees further. We're certainly interested in being competitive with other school districts in our area. And so we believe that we're gonna need to add some money, some revenue there to bring those people more, or us to get more competitive in them for us to be able to retain those individuals. We have a lot of turnover, and I won't put Mary on the spot, but we have a lot of turnover in our support staff, and we need to find ways to retain good people, whether they're certificated or non-certificated. As it relates to the mental health piece, we pay significant money to consultants, clinical psychologists, sizable amounts of money. It may be that we could bring our own clinical psychologist on board to serve our students all day, every day, for a price equivalent to or perhaps less than what we're contracting some of that service out for now. I would add to that based on looking at interventionists to student population, we clearly need some additional support for our students. And I'm thinking eventually in the next few years, maybe clinical psychologists and a couple additional interventionists. on board to serve our children.
Mr. President, I speak. You might could give some ratios, Mary, Dr. Murphy, on 650 students per counselor, just a guidance counselor. I'm not talking intervention. The ratios we have are extremely high to the staff.
Yes, I don't know that I can quote the ratios, but you're absolutely right. We have lots of children being served by counselors, and so we very well, in addition to looking at interventionist support, maybe we need to look at some additional counselors in our schools. But mental health is an area that we're going to have to invest additional resources into to serve our children well.
Dr. Murphy, can you speak to the technology refresh, what that entails over the 6-year period?
Brian, may I just pitch to you?
Yeah, you can. The equipment we're using now is part of the bigger initiative that we started 5 years ago. And every year we build in about a $2.5 to $3 million refresh of that equipment. Specifically on the fact that we have a five-year refresh cycle on every desktop in the class. The first FY19 would be to replace every desktop in the elementary schools, all 10 elementary schools. 20, I believe, is a middle school, and I gave one to Michelle this morning, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But it's a 5-year cycle, so it's Hoover High Spain Park, specifically in 2 years, middle schools all in 1 year, elementary's all in 1 year, and then hardware. So switches, servers, things along those lines. 20, okay, so 20 is hardware, I'm sorry. I have it in a spreadsheet, it's on in front of me.
And you said you built in, but this is not budgeted. You say built in, what do you mean built in?
Yeah, it is not budgeted. We, along the time, we have never put most of those things along in the budget. I've just made them fit where we could.
And what we're trying to do now is to say this is a big ticket item, and it certainly should be reflected in all of our budgets as we go forward. So, thank you, Brian.
You know, along these questions, I think it's important to note, if you look at each one of these lists, no matter which year you look at, it's not wants. These are essentially needs. There's a whole nother list of wants.
Lots along with this, right, principals?
Amen. So, you know, the whole purpose here, I think, is not to be real cavalier about this, because these are actual real needs and not wants.
Thank you for that.
And we're asking, and I'm quote Dr. Murphy, but we're asking instructors, certified, non-certified, everybody in this district to do more work. And basically without local, we were losing people, and so we've got to do something to keep our employees here. They're very, very valuable, and we're getting picked off by the over the mountain districts or in other districts. So we recognize how important it is, and it's very important for you to know what this is going to cost, because it is not budgeted right now. You're seeing into the future of what's coming, hopefully.
Let me make some anecdotal comment about that, because you can see this cost incurred from, for example, the cost needed to sustain the support staff we got. What you don't see is how much cost walks out the door in terms of institutional knowledge that they take with them, and we have to start all over, essentially, with new employees. So it's just like teachers and everybody else in the education business. The institutional knowledge, the cultural acceptance, and the ability to do what they do is developed through professional development and just years on the job. And for every person we lose the person clearly because somebody else wants them, but we lose a lot of money that we've invested in this person to take care of our kids in our district. That's a big nuance there that most people don't really take too much consideration on.
So moving forward to FY21, again, you're gonna see those recurring costs. You will see the River Chase Career Center salaries decrease a little bit. After we've been in a year in that room or in that building, we will see, we'll pick up some funding from the state. But for a Career Tech Center, you usually only get your director funded. They don't necessarily fund all your other positions. The district I used to work in, what they did is they took local units from those high schools that sent kids and basically shared those units. And that was not no principal was a fan of that. So we're looking at continually carrying forward those local units at $435,600. You will also see a roofing project for South Shades Crest, a paving projects for Simmons and Bluff Park. We're looking at a Bluff Park Elementary in renovations of 1.5, again, as Dr. Murphy just explained what those might look like. The 16 additional classrooms at Berry Middle, the other part of that $6 million at $3 million, we should see those expenditures in FY21. The remainder of expenditures for River Chase, 8 additional classrooms of 1.7. So everything else is pretty much just carry forward of recurring costs. So we're looking at in FY21, $17,880,000, bringing our reserve balance down even more to $71,308,000. That is with revenues staying flat. And again, we've mentioned that in the past couple of years since I've been here, we've seen a slight growth in ad valorem tax, slight growth. At some point, that's going to end. I mean, when you look at history, there's always fluctuations in that. You'll see a few years of growth, and then it starts dropping off. And at some point, we're going to see that dropping off. So that's why I'm trying to plan for flat revenue. So for FY22, again, some of the same recurring, but we're looking at paving, roofing projects for Brock's Gap. Not sure yet that far out which paving projects we're going to need. It'll be based upon needs, of course. The remainder of Bluff Park Elementary renovations at $1.5 million. We're looking at adding Gwen Elementary additions, and yeah, we did say 8 additional classrooms there to open in the fall of 2024. $1 million to get started. Again, we're looking at a total of $14,180,000, bringing our reserve back down to $57,128,000. And then we projected again to FY23. Roofing projects at Rocky Ridge, Gwen, Simmons, still not sure of our paving projects, and then getting started and doing probably half of our budget for the Gwen additional classrooms of $2 million. Bringing that total for FY23 of $13,680,000, bringing our reserve down to $43,447,000. And then we projected our last year was FY24, and basically that was to finish up the Gwen addition for the 8 classrooms. The remainder of that budget of $2 million, the recurring expenditures, roofing projects at Deer Valley, bringing a total of $13,680,000, bringing our reserve down in FY24, which is just around the corner, bringing our reserve down to $29,767,000 if revenues stay flat. So, looking at that, this is what a graph of our reserve looks. Again, right now we look great, but we know we have these needs coming forward. And again, you use your reserve, you usually plan your capital projects for that, but we've also got some needs in just recurring expenditures that we're going to bring that significantly down. Now, the state requires that we have a 1-month reserve on hand at all times for emergencies. With the $29,767,000 in FY24, we're looking at about a 2.5, which is something Hoover's never had. They've always had way above that. So, is it time to panic? I wouldn't say panic, but we got to start doing something. We've got to look at some things. But some things that are contingent that Dr. Murphy mentioned earlier is additional annexation by the city, the change of units, the housing units from single to multifamily or from multifamily to single, the moving the housing unit locations from, say, one site to another site. We've talked, and I think Mr. Solomon talked with you guys about the Hidden Valley pending conversations. That could have an impact. Future decisions of the court relating to unitary status, of course, will have an impact. And then something that we did not plan, which by about FY24, we're probably going to see an election, some elections between those years, where they'll probably raise the pay raise or do some pay raises for educators and educational staff. So that is not built into here because I don't know, you never know what that may end up being, what those pay raises may be, but that is something that we've got to plan for as well because as you see, a 2.5 cost our district locally about $2 million.
So basically, the goal here is, first of all, hats off to everybody who had a had a hand in this. We don't have any new schools. The fear of the mega high school, the fear of new elementary schools is way further down the road that we don't have to deal with currently. And that has a lot to do with how the River Chase Career Center is going to manage some of the pressure at Hoover High School and some other rezoning actually helped redistribute some of that. So hats off to that. The other thing though to me is all these needs to me, and Dr. Murphy, you can chime in on this one, are essential to meeting the current needs and expectations of the community. Because, you know, there is a high level of expectations for the school district. Doesn't matter if you got a kid at school or not, your property value is tied directly to it. So it's important that we enter into this in a very fiduciary manner, and you've done a great job in outlining what we're looking at. Again, assuming things are kind of the way they are. You know, there's the unpredictability of state funding, to some extent local funding, and certainly federal funding should the economy go in the tank. It's all just a real mystery at this point, but it's, you know, it's not a matter of if, but when, in my opinion.
We hear from the community sometimes, you know, you have $100-something billion in the bank. That's your savings account. This is what will happen to it if we don't sustain the revenue we have now. The state foundation, we exceed, I've said this many times, we pay more than the state does to fund Hoover City Schools for your children to go there. I mean, there are many counties that don't do anything but the state match, the 10 mil, that's it. We're double that, so your investment is there. Our city is very generous with the $5 million a year that's committed from them. You can see how important that is. We don't know if at some point we have to go, we're 2.4 mils within what they call a lid bill, so we can ask the voters, if we come up with a tremendous capital expense, to go to the voters and ask for every loan to be increased, but it is coming. We're not talking about a high school on these charts right here. We're talking about frugally adding to where we need to add, possibly raising salaries to train our instructors. So this is very, very important. Good job.
In 2025, do our bond payment, in 2024, I'm sorry, do our bond payments end then?
No, sir, they don't. There will be a few that will. I think it was 2027. We see a significant decrease in that. But I think it was at 2024 we do see one, the small one, being paid off.
But the $2 million is really picking up the principal on existing infrastructure.
Yes.
I want to again say that our impact study that was presented to us this evening has really gotten our cogs turning in the central office, even more so than they generally are turning around here. And I think we can take the impact study and have very definitive conversations with you all as a board now going forward. I think it's super that Tina and others on our staff have taken the time to walk us out with some projections of what this is going to look like and what those costs might look like for us. And certainly, again, this has all been framed around what we've learned from the impact study and what we already knew or saw coming. So it just kind of reiterated or reinforced for us some of that. So I'm excited that you can look out, at least begin to look out about 5 or 6 years forward with the thought of what's on the horizons and also what the cost impact may be to us. We have been exceptionally delighted that we've brought forward to you a balanced budget for the first time in many years, 10 years, whatever it happens to be. And as you've said on a number of occasions, Mr. Cooper, that did not come without some angst and some pain. And I will tell you, as we look forward, if we stay flat or, heaven forbid, we should take some dips in revenue coming to us, it will have a significant impact on the bottom line for the school district. Hoover does not want to be that school district that's looking at the state knocking on the door saying you're less than a month operating cost and we need to come help you figure out how to do your business. But you do see the trend here is powerfully impactful on us as to where we could end up being. So thank you all for letting us, first of all, share an amended budget, but also to let us look forward with you for about 5 or 6 years so you can see the possibilities of where this might end up for us.
There's something that goes unspoken here, but I want to thank you, the staff, everybody who participated in this. because you guys had the foresight to do this and do it now. And what goes unspoken is it answers a lot of questions that have been bubbling up across the community about what, when, how much, how often, who, what. All those questions about big time capital expenditures and schools' finances are pretty much laid out here in a very understandable manner that should really help us all get our minds and hearts around the school district.
Board members, I would like to ask your approval of the amended budget. That was the information that was pre me saying nothing after this that you're voting on, but I do ask you to approve the amended budget as presented by Ms. Hancock.
Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of the budget amendment? So, do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions from the board? A lot of information here. Any questions from the public? It will be on the website, so there will be no mystery here, but if you do, I'm sure the team would love to hear from you, right?
Yes, sir.
Anyway, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is approved. Board members, you have before you the bid 2018-5 for moving services in conjunction with the rezoning if it ever should occur.
Yes. Board members, I would like to ask that you reject this bid. There is a reason why we would ask you to do that. There was some confusion between the amount or number of classrooms that would be moved, and rather than getting tangled up in some web, I'd like for you to reject it and allow us the opportunity to revisit this.
Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of a rejection of the bid 2018 for moving services? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public from this? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is approved. Next item to consider is the 2018 summer work schedule. Dr. Martin?
We shared with you during our special call meeting a few weeks ago the proposed summer schedule. This is a summer schedule that looks very much like previous summers, where our employees are working 4 10-hour days and off on Fridays. We did share with you that there are some departments where this design simply does not work that well, particularly our employees who might be in the heat and a long day not serving them well. So I do know that there will be some exceptions, and that will be your department for one, Tracy. I do ask your approval, however, the summer 2018 work schedule, and if you would just allow me the flexibility to say to respective departments if they need flexibility from the schedule.
Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of the approval of the 2018 summer work schedule? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is approved. Next are textbook resource adoption.
Yes, you have before you from Dr. Adams a recommendation for textbook resource adoptions. Dr. Adams, would you tell us which of our subject areas are before us and maybe share who your committee is?
This year, the state has provided funding for world languages and for fine arts. And so our committee of every teacher in the fine arts area and in the world languages area separately were invited to begin meeting with us early in the fall and looking over materials. So what you see before you are the recommendations that the teachers took to the district committee. The district committee made of parents and teachers. Then listened to presentations, discussed the different options that were out there, and the list you see before you is what the committee is recommending for you, the board, to adopt for Hoover City Schools.
Board members, I would ask your approval of the textbook resource adoption.
Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the approval of the textbook resource adoption?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion is approved. New business and your information report, Dr. Murphy?
Yes, we have a policy addition. We've mentioned this previous to this evening, and that is to allow us the flexibility to have the superintendent or designee, so that our policy does not read that the superintendent is responsible for all parts of our board's policy, but that could go to a designee. We've had Whit work with us, Mr. Colvin work with us, and so the proposal is for 2.6.3, a highlighted area on your documents that indicates delegation of the superintendent's responsibilities. The superintendent is authorized to delegate his or her responsibilities to other board members subject to any limitations provided by the law. I want to thank Dr. Simmons because she actually went through the board policy and she has identified for you every area in our board's policy where it says the superintendent will, and she's highlighted that for you. Should you find any part of that objectionable, you'll see all the areas that we're talking about that would fit.
We should thank her. You should thank her.
Oh, I'm immensely grateful. And so I do ask your approval of the policy addition, which is the 2.6.3.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of the policy addition, board policy addition that you just described? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? It's an extensive list, I'll say that.
I would have a question. Mr. Cohen, our attorney, you've looked at all this. This is obviously legal, but also common to do this because it's releasing authority of the board.
Well, I do have to say, I have to thank Melissa McKee in our office, who works on the policy manuals for ASB throughout the state, was in Montgomery today doing that very thing. And I think she worked with Dr. Simmons on it to get it done. I have no concerns whatsoever about a clause like this. As a practical matter, in a district this size, it's probably just necessary. I mean, the superintendent can't do everything herself that the policy manual sort of imposes on her, and she needs help with that. And fortunately, we have most capable assistants here in this central office to carry some of that weight for her. So,
Any other questions? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The action is approved.
For those who missed our impact study, we will post that online, and wherever Jason is, my assumption is we'll get that up not later than tomorrow sometime, so we'll get that impact study up for review. We do have with us this evening Philip Cleveland. Dr. Cleveland, I want to thank you for being here. We've actually contracted with Dr. Cleveland to support our work with the River Chase Career Connection Center, and it's an appropriate time for us to sort of get an update. Where are we, and engage our gauge our progress. Dr. Cleveland, thank you for being here. Would you share with us?
Does everybody know who this guy is?
It's important.
He is the man, the myth, the legend. I knew him back during the two-year college system days with Dr. Heinrich, and then you moved on to the state board, assuming a workforce development role, and you know, he's forgotten more than I ever knew about workforce development and career tech. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Give you an update on the workforce center, the River Chase Hoover Connection Center. How did I get that? You got it?
Pictures up.
Yeah, I just like that first screenshot. What I want to bring before you and kind of present as an update, obviously, because a lot of unanswered questions still exist. But Dr. Murphy has had me over the last 2 months going out and meeting with your industry partners as well as your educators within your system. Met with all the career educators as well as the principals at your high schools, guidance counselors, to start that conversation or have that conversation at a deeper level. Understanding the program interests from your student population, understanding what their interests, where their interests lie, as well as the alignment with your business and industry. Working with your local economic development and the city leaders here to ensure that we choose the correct program pathways, not just starting programs for the sake of starting programs. So we've had and engaged in those conversations, and as an exciting bit of news, your industry people are extremely excited. They are committed not only in interest of being on advisory committees, but from equipment to the potential of providing instructors for the classrooms. Over my tenure in career tech education, that is the way to do it. It is the way to make sure that your career technical instructors are always current, teaching things that are necessary and needed to make sure that your students are prepared to transition either to college or directly to the workplace. So I think that is kudos to the local business and industry and your community here for being willing to step up and provide that, that level of support. You can see just a kind of a first shot at the front of the River Chase Career Connection Center. You can see that investment for you, I'll tell you that in my tenure, I've boarded airplanes. I've told the superintendent this to go to other states to see what you have the potential of creating here in Hoover. Again, you'll be the premier for our state. In my opinion, you got close people. Tuscaloosa and Muscle Shoals are the two city school systems, or the systems in this state, that I would say would have a comparable facility. And I, again, tell you that going about this work in this fashion is the best way to do it, meaning that your industry is helping you make decisions about programmatic decisions rather than we educators. So that will set you apart from many workforce training centers that exist in the state today. The initial programs are culinary, hospitality, and tourism. Obviously, when you have a kitchen, a commercial kitchen, that is an extremely expensive program to start, but because of your purchase, it's an obvious, and also your workforce need aligns to that program area. The construction area, the HVAC, electrical, and framing construction areas, we've had extensive interest in this. On-site meetings with advisory committees, with your all of your industry people that had interest in being there. We had one meeting with 20 plus industry partners on site to provide input to the architect in designing the space, not only about what curriculum to use, but also how do you want this space to look to closely replicate what people are going to see when they get on your job site. So that's an exciting, again, exciting to see that occur in a gym with the high ceilings, which is obvious space. IT, computer science, we recently had an IT roundtable. There's some people in the audience that attended that meeting to provide insight on what curriculum should we use and what certifications should the students possess when they leave high school to make sure that they're meeting your needs as industry people. Law and public safety, the fire science program, the Hoover Fire Department, the fire chief has been integrally involved in this design, and the city as well. So real excited about preparing people to transition right out of high school into a 5-week course and be ready to walk into your fire department locally as a certified firefighter. There's a lot to be said about that. Welding and mechatronics, your industrial maintenance program, again, very high demand program in the state of Alabama, and your local industry will be another pathway. And then the pathway that is on the table and still under consideration is your health science programs. You have a vibrant health science program at both Hoover and Spain Park, and there's a need to take that programming to the next level from an ability for students to prepare to transition to clinicals. You're recognized recently as one of the major medical providers in the nation, and what better way to partner with the hospitals locally than to provide a higher quality experience for your students before they transition to the workplace. So that is an area where we would have a simulated hospital and students would do their checkoffs there prior to entering the clinical experience. So those are kind of the program pathways. You know, we're working to have you, I hope to have the superintendent within 30 days, something that's deeper than a draft, but for you to consider to bring forth to the board so that you can make a decision on the construction and the program side of this Workforce Training Center, Career Connection Center. So hopefully within a 60-day period, there'll be documents based on what the architect shared with me. That'll be a ready to bid document for you to do what you choose to do with superintendent. So with, be glad to answer questions if you have any questions at this point.
This is,
We're just obviously very excited. Some of this information, we're not asking questions because it's been shared with us. But
Right.
I hope the public will ask questions, but this is really something. In industry, I think I called Dr. Dodson one day, I had a brilliant idea. Home Builders Association and a couple others I talked to, said, yeah, I said, what do you think about sponsoring this? As soon as I called Dr. Dodson, y'all were way beyond it already. We're talking private dollars, going to outfit and get it ready for the workforce equipment, so which means less money out of our budget.
Absolutely.
Could you even begin to guesstimate the in-kind services and investment in our facility and students? Made by,
Well, just in the construction program pathways alone, when you talk about consumable supplies that your business and industry people have already said that we will provide, the consumable costs are extremely high with career technical programs. So, just in a consumable cost for that program pathway area, you're talking $100,000 to $150,000 annually that they're going to put forward. Providing instructors where people come in to teach that in the morning to a group of students and then go back to the workplace and another industry sends a teacher in. Obviously, there's a person there that's the consistent to meet the educational requirements to ensure that students with special needs are met and so forth. But having those experts come in as guest lecturers, they're willing to do that. On Friday morning, we'll be meeting with AGC, a group of contractors, to update them because they're at the point of interest that they're wanting monthly updates because they're ready to make financial investments in this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
pretty exciting. Dr. Cleveland, thank you. I appreciate your presentation. Strategies for growth probably should have been more strategic plan. And again, much of what you've heard tonight, if you go back to our strategic plan that we earlier laid out for you, and you will see that all of our work and many of these processes absolutely align to the things that we suggested to you that we would be doing as we're laying out capital outlay, as we're planning programs, as we're working with students with skilled trades. So I would just remind you that we're still being very driven by what we said we would be driven by, and that's our strategic plan. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Dr. Murphy? Thank you. A lot of great information. Next regular board meeting will be on May 8th, 2018, here in the central office, boardroom. Any questions?
Actually, I have a comment,
Go
if
for
you
it.
don't mind.
No, you're fine.
So I would just like to share a little bit. We've got a couple of new programs that we're starting. Hopefully we'll start, I should say. One is a mentoring program. Myself, Dr. Simmons, Counselor Marley Stevens, Dr. Maddox, who's here with us tonight. Jeff Singer, I believe, is here as well. And Counselor Leanne Rhodes is on the steering committee for this program. So it's in the infant stages, but we will hopefully be bringing some more information to you. And it's so exciting. I'm so excited about it. So I hope that that it's something that we will be able to do going forward, and I will share more information with you at a later date. One thing that I would like to share that's going to roll out hopefully in the next couple of days is the idea of a spirit closet. So what this is, we're going to have a spirit drive towards the end of April. I'm going to reach out to our PTOs and hope that they will take on the spirit drive. It'll be a full week, and what we're asking, it's spring cleaning, right? So for me, I have buckware, I have a whole bag of it, and I don't necessarily want to give it to Salvation Army. I want to give it to another buck. I'm sure there are other parents that want to do the same thing. So the idea is to have a drive so that we can give the buckware, jagware, whatever your wear is called, to other students who need to have or would like to have the spirit wear for Friday night game. So what I anticipate to happen is, I will speak with, the PTO presidents, hopefully get the buy-in from our principals, and, move forward, with this towards the end of April. Now, once the drive is over, the idea, this is still, we're working out kinks right now in all of this. The idea of this is that the counselors will demand the spirit closet going forward. This would be something that with our new students to help them feel welcome and already have spirit wear right when they walk in the door. So, any questions?
I think you're gonna share with our principals in the morning, maybe.
Yes. So, anyway, it's really exciting. I think it's something that's I'm passionate about. So hopefully, it will go well and it will be something that we can do annually. And then it will be ongoing for our counselors to have this closet at their discretion to use.
Kudos for you for stepping up. Awesome, yeah, thank you. Before I close this thing out, dinner and dining last weekend. If you didn't go, you missed it. Great silent auction, great entertainment by our own teacher staff and First Edition as always. Great food, great fellowship, and the only person who really suffered a down situation there was Dr. Dawson, who lost Homer Simpson.
He lost.
He graciously put it up for auction, and Robin, you still here? Robin Schultz ended up, I think, buying it for his daughter's birthday party, but it's a life-size Homer Simpson. So anyway, it was a great time. If you didn't go this year, you should go next year. It was at the Met this year. Assume they have the same venue. That's where it'll be. Okay, thank you for being here. The next regular board meeting will be on May 8th, 2018 at 5:30 p.m.
Board members, we do have reason to go into executive session to address a matter related to discipline, and so I'd like to ask that you consider this, and this is appropriate under our Alabama Open Meetings Act, can be attested to by our attorney who's present, and would ask that we adjourn into executive session and would remind you all that we need to vote individually as it relates to going into session.
We have a motion to meet in executive session. Someone have a second? Okay, I will take a name call vote. Craig?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Kermit?
Yes.
We have 5 yeas, 0 nays. The time is now 6:48. I suspect these things are fairly unpredictable with 30 to 45 minutes, so we should reconvene here back around 7:30 p.m. Central Time.
No decisions made.
Yeah, no decision made. So, that being done, adjourn to executive session.